Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? Well, it is currently 5:47 p.m. on this cloudy but beautiful, humid, warm, early June evening. I'm waiting for my husband to get home. He just called and told me he was leaving work and that he was going to stop at Costco on the way to get some stuff. And yeah, I think we're just going to hang out and maybe watch a little bit of TV tonight. I think we have The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and The Real Housewives of Dubai. I'm so bored with that already, and there's only been one episode out. So yeah, I have been really, really tired all day today, and I'll explain it to you in a second. I wasn't even like sure that I was going to film any videos today, and then I went back and forth, and then I was like, no, like I want to film a couple videos. I had a review video that I wanted to do today. I had a Peter Does Stuff video that I wanted to do today, which is where I make little sandwiches for a picnic. I like everything little, you know, and so, well, not everything. But you know, like when I talk about like the birds and stuff like that, I actually was thinking about doing a video on my Peter Does Stuff channel. If you were watching actually the bird just flew back up into her nest. If you watched my vlog from the other night, I was talking about how like in the blizzard, I'm going to open the door and let all the birds come in, and then Boo Radley and I we're gonna make little sleeping bags for them and lay them out in front of the fireplace so that we can have like a little, you know, like a little blizzard sleepover, and have little popcorn and stuff like that for them. Christmas cookies, little bird Christmas cookies and stuff. So anyway, I was actually thinking that it would be kind of hilarious if Boo Radley and I made a video for my Peter Does Stuff channel making sleeping bags for birds. And I was like, surely this video can't already be up on YouTube, and don't call me Shirley. And sure enough, there's a video called, there is a video about making a sleeping bag for a bird. Because I looked it up and I was like, are you kidding me? Hold on a second, let me pull it up and tell you what it's called. Sleeping bags for birds. There's all kinds of bird videos out here. Here it is. How to make a sleeping tent for Budgie. It's sitting at 166,000 views. And there's a couple, well, there's like one other one besides that. But I thought it would be cute to do like a whole series of videos on Peter Does Stuff channel, like making little stuff for birds, you know? Because I just like to imagine that birds have the same life that I do. But anyway, and then I was going to do a Peterisms video. The meditation that I read last night before I went to bed in the Amy Dean meditation book, which is called Nighttime Meditations, I think. It was really good. And it was about like beating ourselves up because maybe we get everything done on our list, or maybe we were successful at work today and whatever, but it's like we still feel like somehow unfulfilled at the end of our days. And I thought, this is so true. This is kind of where I'm at right now, actually. So good thing I brought this meditation up, right? But that we still feel unfulfilled. And maybe it's because we didn't take any time for ourselves. Like we didn't watch a TV show. Well, that's not the truth here because I watch a lot of TV shows. But maybe we didn't read a book, or maybe we didn't, you know, listen to a song and dance in the kitchen or something like that, you know, and it's, or have a glass of like really good lemonade or a cup of coffee or something, you know. So it was this great meditation and I really related to it. And so I wanted to do the Peterisms about that today. Well, this is what happened. So, okay, last night, well, first of all, let's just flash back to yesterday after I vlogged. The vlog got up so late because I uploaded it on the computer, and y'all know it just takes forever to upload it on the computer. And even when I got home at like 8 o'clock or 8:30, it was still uploading. And so then finally I laid down for a little bit. I was like, I'm so tired. So I laid down, and when I finally got up, this is the story of my sleeping pattern. It was finally done, and so I uploaded it, which I don't even know when that was. It was after 12 sometime, 12:30, 12:45, 1 o'clock, something like that. So, took the Uber to my marriage counseling appointment yesterday. Y'all know I was nervous about that. Okay, I don't know why. My friend Valerie, she's always like, I want you to stop saying that you're nervous about stuff and that you're fearful of these things. She's like, I want you to be confident in things. I'm like, I try to be. Like, I think of myself as a pretty confident person. Like, just because I express, you know, that I'm nervous about something doesn't mean that I'm not going to do it or that I'm not going to try it, right? So, she's like, because you're not a nervous person. And she was like, but you say that a lot, like, not just on videos, but like to her or to my friends. I'll say, oh, I'm kind of scared about this or I'm nervous about that, right? So anyway, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna be more confident about the things that I do. From now on, I'm gonna say, no, I'm excited about taking this Uber. Well, it was fine. You know, Alex had, like, the night before, like, I made sure that I went through the app with him. I know, it's like I'm 10 years old, right? But I went through the app with him. I made sure that, you know, like, it was all set up. Because I have used it in other cities going on 5, 6 years or however long Uber's been around, right? Everything was fine. I just done Uber Eats not too long ago with those insomnia cookies that I ordered too many of. So he just went through and he made sure that everything was set up correctly and that, like, you know, we had the home set up there and whatever. And he said, he told me, like, how early, because the appointment was at 6, and he goes, I would order it at 5, and they'll probably get here at 5:15, 5:20, and then you'll have enough time to get the appointment in time. So I did all that. Guy came here, like, right when he said he would. Really, really nice older gentleman, and we talked, like, imagine me talking to the Uber driver. I talk to Uber drivers, like, every time I get into an Uber. Talked the whole way there, and he was really, really nice, and he was like, I'm just glad that you came out. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, the last person, like, I kept on, like, messaging her or whatever, and she just never came out, and I had to they charge her anyway. And he was like, but if she had just told me what was going on, I would have just left or whatever. And I said, does that happen a lot? And he goes, a lot more than you would think it would. So anyway, but he was really nice. And I got to my appointment about 15 minutes early. So I walked around a little bit. It's kind of in this weird area where there's like 5 Pilates and 5 Pilates and yoga studios, 3 restaurants, 4 restaurants, apartments, and then no coffee shops or anything. Any place to walk into and just be like, I want a fountain pop or whatever, you know? So I ended up walking over to the appointment. Alex actually passed me on the way. And I said, he was like, he pulled over, like, to pick me up, like, because it's just, like, in this little area. And so I was like, no, I only have, like, a block to walk, so I'm going to walk it because I need to be walking. So we had our marriage counseling appointment. Went fantastic. Afterwards, we were both hungry. We're going to go out to dinner somewhere. And I said, do you want to go out to dinner or do you want to take it back? And he was like, well, I'm kind of tired. Let's just take something back. And he's like, do you want to do Thai Station? Thai Station is this Thai restaurant in Fishers that is phenomenal. Phenomenal. We love it. The fried rice. Can't be my husband. I can hear cars now from sitting out here and knowing what they sound like. No, it's a different car. But they have, like, the best ever. And so I got veggie fried rice minus the broccoli, because they had put huge broccoli in there. Minus the broccoli, add pineapple. Don't start with me with the pineapple. I love pineapple on anything. I really do. Do you know what I really like that I haven't had in forever is a pineapple upside down cake. Oh my god. My mom used to make those when I was a kid. So anyway, like homemade pineapple upside down cake. I'm not a big lover of fruit salad, though. Do you guys like fruit salad? I'm not a big lover of fruit salad. So we got the carry out. I actually called my friend Valerie while we were waiting for the food. So we're just standing there talking to her, and then we got our food, and then we came home and changed into our jammers, because you got to change into your jammies once you get home. Changed into our jammers once we got home, and we watched Real Housewives of Atlanta. You know, here's the thing for me. First of all, I just want to say, if you watch Real Housewives of Atlanta, I'm really starting, I was bored by her at first this season, but now I'm really loving her. And that is it Sonia or Sonia? I don't know how you pronounce her name, but she's the one that won like 2 Olympic gold medals, and her husband played for the Giants, and he won the Super Bowl, or they had won the Super Bowl twice while he was playing for them. I really, really like her. Like, Atlanta, don't get me wrong, I miss the Atlanta of back in the day when they were like constantly fighting with each other. But you can really tell if you've watched it I mean, I've watched Atlanta since like year 1, you know, and back in the days when Phaedra and Kim Zolciak was on. Do you know that Phaedra is going to be on an episode of The Real Housewives of Dubai? They showed it on the trailer for After the end of the first episode, they showed Dubai. They showed the season trailer, and Phaedra was like having lunch with one of them. So anyway, I know that Phaedra is so problematic, but she was good on Atlanta. But this is the other thing. It's like they've kind of all grown up a little bit. Like they're a lot more mature. The fighting is different on the show. Like even Marlo, who I love, and I love Marlo for her sass and for her fashion. That's what I love Marlo for. But like even Marlo, like I feel like she's, I don't know, like, I mean, they're all about my age, in all honesty, you know, and just look incredible and are very successful, but, like, there was this dinner that they had, and all of the women were kind of confronting Drew's husband at this dinner, and even Kenya, in the way that she presented it to her, she just was like, I didn't appreciate the way that you said that, and if you were my husband, I'd turn this table over, and whatever. Like, really standing up for each other, you know, and Drew and Sheree, like, really got into it at Kenya's daughter's birthday party. And, like, they apologized to each other. And it just was really mature. I really liked how I'm sure it's not how this whole season goes. Because we were watching Watch What Happens Live. And Drew was on it. And Drew talked about her and Sheree getting into it again. Something like that. But in all of this Sonia... Oh, so... Marlo, she confronted Candy, because Candy's the one that takes them on this trip, right? To New York City. They're in New York City. And she gives them these, like, vibrating panties, which, whatever, you know, it's, they're a group of close friends, but the idea was they were supposed to wear them and then give the remote to somebody else. And Marlo, and there were a couple other women, like Kenya and Sheree, were all kind of turned off by this, right? Like, why would you do this? And Candy thought it was really funny because, you know, Candy owns a line of sex toys and stuff like, well, I don't know if you know that, but Candy owns a line of sex toys. So Marlo confronted her at the dinner, and Marlo was kind of like, Candy, I think you've kind of overstepped the line a little bit. Like, I don't think that's appropriate. And no one really backed her up on it. It was interesting. But then when they were supposed to wear them later, it was like, no, I'm not wearing that. Like, Kenya was like, I am not, like, these are married women with their husbands. Like, this is not appropriate, you know? You don't hear a lot of those conversations on The Real Housewives. Not just about, like, that kind of stuff, but anything in general where they have, like, real mature conversations. And it's, like, it was really refreshing to watch. And so Sonia, she's new. This is her first season. And, what do you call them? The golf carts are out for this summer. So anyway, she is like, her parents are from Jamaica. She's multicultural. She's just a really cool woman. But she was kind of boring as the season began. Well, it's only the season just has began, honestly. It's only like the third or fourth season. So she was talking about how she had issues with Drew. And Drew was like, I don't understand what your issues are. And she's like, you know, I really want to be your friend. Like, there's a lot about you that I really love. But then there's a lot, and I think we all feel like this at times with certain friends of ours. She said, you know, there's a lot about you that I can't co-sign, basically, either. Like, when you got in Sheree's face with your hand. She's like, I don't like that, you know? And for me to be your friend and be there for you and go all in, like, I can't. And it was interesting because Candy was like, what is Sonia going on about? She's not making any sense. And I looked at Alex and I said, she's making perfect sense to me. I've had that friend before. I've had that friend that I have been, because she said to her, you want me to defend you, you want me to be loyal and stand up for you, but I can't in those moments, right? Like, I've had those friends before. Some of them aren't even in my life anymore because the stuff became so problematic that I just was like, I can't. You want me to be your friend, loyal, true and through, or through and true, or whatever the saying goes, true and true. But then you want me to stand by certain stuff that philosophically, principle-wise, it doesn't co-sign, or I can't co-sign, or it doesn't go along with what I believe. I remember I had a friend of mine back in the day. Well, I have a very close friend of mine I talked about him on here from years and years and years ago. Very ethical person. And he's the one that we actually went on the first date with and then decided it would be better if we just became friends. And so we've been really, you know, diehard friends through, I don't know, how long ago was that? I met him when I was 18, 30 years ago. And, you know, I've known him through, he's known me through all of my relationships, and I've known him through 2 marriages, and I mean, and he's just super successful, really neat guy. But we were having a conversation about another friend of ours, a person that I'm not really that close to today. I'm not close with this person at all, as far as like, you know, maybe social media or whatever. But it was something that they were doing in their life. So anyway, I don't even know. It wasn't something that, like, if you guys, I mean, it was along the lines of like infidelity. But how they would excuse it away. And we were having a conversation, and I said, not this friend of mine that has been diehard. It was the third friend of ours. And we were talking about the excuses at that time. They don't do this today, but at that time that they were making for these behaviors. And I said something like, well, we really shouldn't judge our friends. This was in my 20s, you know. We really shouldn't judge our friends, should we? Because of this or because of that. Like, if we have the conversations with them and we say we're concerned or whatever. And my friend, like, whipped right back around at me. He goes, our friends are representative of who we are as people. So if I stand by and I don't say anything to him, or I don't say I have an issue with this behavior, then absolutely I'm co-signing that behavior. And he goes, and that's a problem. He goes, because I don't co-sign that behavior, or whatever he said at the time. I don't know how he said it. But, you know, I think it's interesting. I think it's a good conversation to have. Like, if we just stand by and the people in our lives say or do things that go against our morals and our principles, you know, and we don't say anything, what does that mean for our morals and our principles? You know, I love the quote in the movie The Contender. If you've never seen the movie The Contender, it's fantastic. I always quote this movie, and I can never remember the woman's name. I feel like her name is Anne something. Hold on a second. Like, Contender. I know it's Jeff Bridges. He plays the president. The Contender cast. It's going to pull up the different one. Oh, no, here it is. Joan Allen. Joan Allen. She's fantastic in it. And The Contender. I want to see if I can get the exact quote for you. Because the quote that I always go with is, principles only mean something if you stick to them when they're inconvenient. Now listen to that. Not that bird. To the quote. Like, that is such a powerful quote. Principles only mean something if you stick to them when they're inconvenient. It's easy for us to say what our principles and our morals are. And hey, listen, and I'm no better than anybody else, okay? There have been many, many moments in my life, even up to this year, where I think, you know, like, it's been easy for me to just be like, okay, let it fly or whatever. Because I don't want to constantly be in opposition with people in my life. But then, who are we, you know? Like, my mom had this rule. Hold on a second, I want to get the quote for you first. Oh, I got it completely right. Principles only mean something if you stick by them when they're inconvenient. So anyway, I love that. I love that quote. But it looked like... Hold on a second. Yeah, it's by her, because her name is Lane Hansen in the show. Principles only mean something when you stick to them when it's inconvenient. I love that. You know, my mom had a rule at her house, and the rule was, like, no mean words. And she felt like that covered, like, any basis or foundation for things that she would have to say. Like, if anybody ever said anything that was really derogatory in front of my mother, first of all, let alone in her home, it would have been over. Like, just to even go there with her, and I'm not talking about to her. I'm talking about saying something derogatory about somebody else, you know, using derogatory terms in front of my mother was such a sign of ignorance to her. and such a sign of lack of compassion, she really kind of wrote you off, you know. And I mean, I think there were some times in her life that she had conversations with people, but I mean, she just really didn't have any time for it whatsoever. And so anyway, getting back to this whole Real Housewives of Atlanta, that this deep dissertation of all of this stuff comes from that. But I think it's a good point of conversation. And it's like the women didn't really want to have the conversation. And Marlo kind of made some jokes about they didn't really understand what Drew's business was. And Sonia was like, well, we'll have this conversation later. I thought it was a fantastic conversation to say, I love you as a person and I love you as a friend, and I want to go hard for you as far as being loyal and defending you. But then what do? I think it's a conversation that we should be having with all of our friends, right? Like, I haven't been put in that situation with most of my friends, and the people in my life that I have kind of like weeded out through the years, if that makes sense. But I think by the time that you get to your 40s or 50s, your core group of friends like typically have the same core belief systems that you do, or there's a problem, right? And so it's like I can't even think of anything that Tanya and I really have opposing. I mean, we have opposing views on. But I can't think of anything that's like where it would be like I don't know if that makes sense. Like, it's not so in opposition to like maybe like a bird nest in a fern or something like that. But you know what I mean? And I think the reality is, if I had or if she had, I don't think we would be in each other's lives at this point. So I don't know what these women were afraid of having that conversation. I thought it was such a great point to bring up, like, because she was looking at her and she was saying, like, I want to be your friend. I like getting to know you, but I can't excuse some of these things away. What do you want me to do in these moments? And it was like they weren't wanting to have the conversation. Well, Drew wasn't wanting to have a conversation. She acted like she didn't even understand it, you know? Which that's always interesting to me. You know, when you bring something to somebody 3 or 4 times, and they go, I just really don't understand what do you mean by that? Like, I don't understand. Don't play dumb. Let's just not, okay? Let's not play dumb. We're too old. We've seen too much of life. Let's just not play dumb about things. You know, and if I come to you and I say my feelings are hurt and you hurt my feelings, or if somebody comes to me and says, you know, you really hurt my feelings by what you said. Now, I will say with Tanya and I, that does happen from time to time. You know, either we're busy and inconsiderate and one of us doesn't ask the other one about what's going on in their life or whatever. So it does happen from time to time. And that's a real easy fix with us, you know. I have never once said to my best friend, you know, like, my feelings are hurt, and she has discounted that. I mean, I can't think of one instance, or vice versa, really, you know. Have I with other people in my life? Yeah, and if it continues to happen over and over and over again, I'm like, you know, like, you should never have to bring to somebody, you know. And I will say this, as far as, like, that, like, this is, Alex and I come from two different backgrounds, so what those words mean and how we say them is one of the things that we had to change in communication with counseling before. Like if I said to him, like, I hurt you're hurting my feelings, or you hurt my feelings by what you said, he'd be like, how did I hurt your feelings? Explain it to me, right? Because that wasn't something that he would say, if that makes sense. Now, if I say to him, you know, babe, like, what you said hurt my feelings, he'll say, oh, I'm really sorry. Like, okay, let me rephrase what I meant. And to him, you know, it's like, if I said something to him, there are certain things that he doesn't like. So I've had to rephrase my communication with that as well. And that's where you just learn to talk to each other in a romantic relationship in different ways. But I think also in friendships you have to too, you know. And there is a huge difference between romantic relationships and friendships. There just is. I think there's things that we let fly, maybe, you know, in friendships that we don't let fly in romantic relationships as well. And I know we were talking about that in marriage counseling last night, about like where we want to go as far as communication from here. And our counselor's like, so why are you guys seeking marriage counseling? And I'm like, he's like, you guys are huge advocates for marriage counseling, aren't you? And we're like, oh yeah. And he was like, I'm not saying this is like a badge of honor, but he was like, you guys are like 50% healthier than most of the couples that I ever even see, you know? And he was like, there's just a couple things, I think. And he was like, but you would do marriage counseling for the rest of your life? And we're both like, yeah, absolutely, you know? Because we just think it's healthy for us to have things, you know, we go in there. And now it's interesting, like the last 2 sessions, we had the last one before and this one, we don't really talk about specific things. We talk about overall kind of themes to things, you know? And I mean, Boo Radley. And, you know, it's not so much like, well, you hurt my feelings saying this, or I didn't understand what you said by that, or, you know, it was before some of that. Now it's more like, it's just overall themes of how we're talking and setting boundaries and things like that, you know, and also setting goals for where we want to go, you know, for the next, you know, 5 or 10 years of our marriage. Hopefully we'll be together that long. But yeah, marriage counseling has been really, really good for us through the years. But like, we really like this counselor. And it's also who I'm seeing individually. And it was interesting because last night he used a dry erase board, and so he was like writing down like our goals for counseling, and he like took a picture of it and like sent it to us. And but anyway, he's just a really nice guy. And you know, like one of the things that he said that was interesting is he said, you know, one of the things I've observed already, he said this actually last time, is he said, even though you guys are in the middle of a therapy session, you're communicating with each other. Like, we'll turn and look at each other and ask each other questions. And he said that usually takes a long time, like for couples. And he said, you obviously learned that before. And it's not like us yelling. It's like, you know, we'll look at each other and I'll say, well, what do you think about that? You know, or usually, what do you think about that, babe? Or something. Or Alex will turn to me and be like, yeah, I think that's great. What do you think? You know? So I always feel so good after, like, not just my therapy sessions in general, but I always feel so good after my marriage counseling sessions. We were going to go every 2 weeks, but we're going to go every week for a while. We're therapied out. Okay, I got therapy individually once a week. I got, next time I think I see him on Monday. Oh, I didn't write down the appointment. Or did I? I got this big address book, or not address book, calendar book that Caroline laughs at because I carry it everywhere I go to doctor's appointments, and I write down like my appointments. It's literally like this big. Alex and Caroline both, they're like, why don't you just put that in your phone? I'm like, because I just like to have it written down. So I don't remember what day we see him next week, but I have counseling with him individually on Monday, and he's really helping me work, you know, just taking a look at everything, putting things in perspective. I feel so good. You know, I don't know, yeah, I'm really happy that we're back. So anyway, so after that, we got Thai Station fried rice, which was, oh my God, it was so good. And then we watched Real Housewives of Atlanta, I already said that. And then Alex watched Watch What Happens Live. I kind of watched it in and out a little bit. And then I called and talked to Tanya for about a half an hour. We just kind of caught up on our day and stuff like that. We got done with Real Housewives of Atlanta at like, it was like after 10 o'clock. Because I talked to Tanya and then we went to bed. And that was at like 10:20, 10:30. And at like 11 o'clock, I said, I'm going to set my alarm for like 12:30 or 1. I can't remember. I have no idea what time I said I was going to set it for. And Alex was like, I said I'm going to get up and I'm going to watch some shows. I wanted to watch 2 shows and then go back to bed. So I got up and like snoozed my alarm like 2 or 3 times. And I got up. Alex was having a really hard time sleeping last night. He was like tossing and turning. He texted me about it today. He said, Oh, he said that he okay, it stopped. And he's coming home right now. Anyway, he said that he was having a nightmare last night, and he kept on waking up and like going back to sleep to this nightmare. So anyway, what was I gonna say? I totally forget what I was gonna say now. But anyway, I got up sometime between 12:30 and 1, and got all set up out here, came out here, and I had 2 episodes left of Night Sky with Sissy Spacek and that H.K. Simmons or whatever his name is. And I finished that. It was really good, and it was totally left to have a second season. So I was like super happy with that. The show is slow, you guys, and I'm gonna tell you, it probably rides an easy 25 miles an hour the whole time. I mean, it never really picks up pace, ever. Like, it never gets much faster. You know how, like, some shows that you watch, it's like they get like, The Staircase, Under the Banner of Heaven was definitely like that. Candy was definitely like that. Where it's like you're watching it and it's like, okay, it's getting to the, like the climax of the show. Night Sky never really does that. Like, you have to really be invested in the show and what it's going to happen and what you find out. Which I have to say, for this small little show, like, the conclusion is really rather interesting. Like, what happens as a result of it at the very end. So, I mean, some huge things that they leave it open to, like, a second season. I have a feeling it won't get renewed for a second season just because it is it's really slow. Like, really slow. Like, it's like... But I liked it. And then I watched The Deep End about Teal Swan. So it's a documentary on Hulu, and I didn't know that it was only 4 parts. I was like, this happened to me with Shining Girls the other night too. So I got into like, well, by this point it was like 4:30 in the morning. But I was like, oh, I want to watch. I was wide awake, and I was like, I want to watch this. So I started watching this. The fourth, I had watched the first 3 episodes of it. So the 4th one came out yesterday. Well, I think it came out on Freeform on Tuesday, and then it came out on Hulu on Wednesday. Tonight, I have The Staircase and Legendary. And then those seasons end. Caroline said she's watching The Serpent, which is about a serial killer, so I need to watch that. But anyway, so, like, in the 70s, it's about like a serial killer, so that's what I think I'm going to watch next. And also From the Ashes, which is on Hulu, which is a documentary. So I was like 10 minutes into The Deep End, which is about Teal Swan, and then I was like, how many episodes are there to this show? Like, it just feels like it kind of goes on forever. And they had hired this private investigator on the show. I'll explain that in a second. And so I looked, and it was a 4-part series, and I was on the 4th part. And I was like, oh, this is the series finale. So we're going to tie everything up together, right? Okay, so if you don't know who Teal Swan is a spiritualist. She really started on YouTube, and I looked last night. She has like 1.2 million subscribers on YouTube, or 1.6 million subscribers, or something like that. But her videos don't do very well anymore. I mean, she gets like 20. I mean, they do well, but they don't do well for a YouTube channel sitting at 1.6. She gets like 20, 30,000 views a video. Here, let me look her up real quick. Teal Swan, here she is. 1.28 million subscribers. And she does like weekly videos. Now she's doing shorts. Like 9 hours ago, she did The Low-Hanging Fruit of Shadow Work, 8.8. The Motherhood versus Career Split. These are all shorts. 25,000 views. But like, her videos are like Documentary Episode 3 Thoughts, release the footage. How Being Ashamed of a Truth Causes You to Gaslight People, 33,000 views. Ether Creature Oracle Cards by Teal Swan. Anger and the False Villain Dynamic, 55,000 views. Documentary Episode 2 Thoughts. Oh, that's interesting, because she has on here Documentary Episode 1 Thoughts, but the last one, she says release the footage. Okay, and this is really interesting to me, because I'll have to watch this and let you guys know what I think. Would you be interested in me doing like a review on my review channel of just of these TV shows in general, or on my Peter Does Stuff channel? A, where do you think that fits? And B, what do you think? Should I put that on my review channel? Would you not care? What do you know? What do you know? Let me know. But what's interesting about this is, I was sitting there and I was watching this documentary last night, and I was like, if I was Teal Swan, I wouldn't release this documentary. Like, I don't understand it. She literally lets people, like, into her, like, the film crew, into her inner sanctum or sanctuary, and lets them film, like, everything. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like, is she so delusional that she doesn't even see, like, she's supposed to be the spiritualist that's helping other people, and she doesn't see, like, her own problematic behavior or lack of taking accountability in any of this, because it's pretty clear when you watch the documentary, okay? So she's getting accused of all these things, right? And so, like, these news articles are written up, and the two things that she's being accused of is that she causes people to be suicidal and that she's a cult leader, okay? And so she hires this private investigator who's, like, this older woman that's very nice, but looks like maybe, like, ouch, lives, like, I don't know, in some peaceful farm in the middle of Wyoming or something. Really, truly, right? Like, she doesn't look like a private investigator, but she's very good at what she does. And so she's supposed to, like, they hire her. It's so funny at the end. She shows this clip from Raiders of the Lost Ark that, like, there's, like, where's the Ark? And they, like, put it in this box, and they put it in this warehouse, like, and she's like, I think that's what's going to happen in my report. They don't even ask to see the report when she's done with it. They don't even ask, like, what she found conclusively. Because at one point, this is, like, at the beginning of the 4th episode, Teal and her have this conversation, like a Zoom call. And Teal says, and she goes, so the woman says, are you responsible for people, you know, being suicidal? And she says, no. Are you a cult leader? Maybe. And Teal goes off. She's like, I don't know why, you know, like, this is really, I'm really angry. Well, she never goes off, but she's, like, very calm. She's like, I'm very angry about this. And so then she asks her all these follow-up questions. And they have these things called non-negotiables, which are basically like a set of rules. And the non-negotiables, like, which they show them revamping the non-negotiables right after she has this conversation. And basically she says, if you're part of my inner circle, you can't have kids, because I can't have crying kids, crying, screaming toddlers around. And no, you're not allowed to have partners, because if you have partners, then they have to fully be invested and believe in what I believe in my mission, and if they don't, then that's going to go against us. And this is all because this guy that has stood by her side, like her first love, her entire life, Blake, he gets married from somebody that is like a believer of hers, and then the woman comes and she sees how power hungry and all this kind of stuff that this Teal is, right? Which, if Teal would watch this documentary back, which apparently she did, and she responded to it, how you watch this and don't see some very scary behaviors that you might want to take a look at, especially when you're somebody forcing other people to take a look at their own lives. Like, it's interesting to me, you know? And she even addresses that in there. She's like, you know, like, I'm the person that's forcing people to take a look at their own lives, and so I'm laying awake at night and I'm like, am I the villain? Am I the bad person? Well, you know, I think that's an easy out. It's more like, am I the one that's causing stress in other people's lives? This one scene, this Blake guy and his wife, because they get married, like, at this commune or wherever they live, they're sitting around with, like, the people that are, like, her main people, which is, like, 8 of them, and she looks at his wife. He's not sitting next to her. They're all sitting on the floor. She looks at his wife and she says, I feel like you're my adversary. And the woman's from Germany, and she's like, what's an adversary? And these other people are like, it means you're her enemy. It means you're in opposition to her, opposing her. And she's just like, okay. And she was like, what are your thoughts about what? This is like on the heels of her also asking, like, what would it take for you to go back to Germany? and you could tell she's jealous of hell of this woman. This Teal Swan, she is jealous of this woman. So she says, you know, what are your feelings about me? And the woman says, you know, I think that you have a very clear mission and that you really know what you want and all this kind of stuff. So Teal says, I feel like that's a sugar-coated version of the truth, of how you feel about me. And she said, what I would be interested in is to hear how the other people in the room feel that you view me. Now, at that point is when I would have said to my husband, we're leaving, okay? We are no longer part of this. I am not putting you in the middle of the emotion circle and allowing you to go through that. And he sits there and allows his wife to go through this BS. I could not believe it. I could not believe it. She sits there and she's like rampant, like Teal Swan's like writing all these things down. She's like, these people are like, you hate her, you're angry at her, yada, yada, yada. Oh, by the way, at the end of this whole thing, Teal Swan, she released the footage. She says it herself. He puts out, because he ends up leaving this Teal thing, and he puts the statement up on Facebook, and all these people are like, congratulations, good luck with your wife, and all this kind of stuff. And Teal says, if they knew the truth, they would want her dead. Who says that? On the heels of saying, no, we don't force our people to stay, and there's no animosity if they want to leave and have outside relationships with people. She completely contradicts everything that she says in these non-negotiables and takes no accountability for it, and then gets angry, realistically, because she got called out, is what it's all about. That's why she gets angry. And it's so clear watching this. I mean, it's very clear. So anyway, where am I at on my battery? This woman sits in this circle crying while these people are like, I think you think Teal's a narcissist. I think you, this one woman, she's like sitting there with her boyfriend on the floor, and she's like, I think that you're afraid of Teal. I think that you think that Teal uses her sexuality to manipulate men. I think, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is all projection, okay? This is literally, all these people are projecting their emotions and feelings onto this poor girl that Teal never wanted to come over from Germany anyway, because she knew that she stood in the way of her and this Blake guy. It's so sad. So then after that, they move out, and he leaves her organization. It's such a bizarre thing. Is it a cult? Absolutely. Watch it and tell me otherwise. And what's really scary about this is that I was sitting there, because she goes and she does these like speaking engagements, and she'll say, how many of you are in, by a raise of hands, how many of you are in so much pain that you feel like you just can't go on? And the whole audience raises their hand like this, like hi, like ah, like I'm in so much pain, right? Well, I think when you're working with people like that and you're a motivational speaker, I mean, you can basically say anything and they're going to hang on your every word. And I was sitting there and I was watching some of the things that she says, and a lot of it, like, you know, I mean, she says on there, you know, she talks a lot about childhood trauma, because she's had a lot of childhood trauma. And she talks a lot about coming from chaos and trauma and stuff like that. Well, I mean, the average person in the world has come from some kind of childhood trauma. There's something, whether it's being bullied at school, or being too popular, or not popular enough, or not having grandparents, or having extreme forms of abuse, or being neglected, or growing up in addiction, or whatever. Most people have had some form of childhood trauma growing up that they can connect with, right? And relate to. So I feel like her asking that question is super, you know, and then she'll say, that's why you were brought to me. That's why you're here today. Well, she says at the end of the whole thing, is it her that says, yeah, she says people seek out religion because they don't have relationships with people in their lives. Well, aren't you in some kind of way a religiosity that people are seeking you out because of emptiness that they have in their life? And I have to tell you what's really scary about this is, I also felt this way when I watched that Far, Far Country, or whatever that's called. That's on Netflix. That's a fantastic documentary, by the way. I don't know if it's still on there. Is it still on there? Let me look. I feel like at times, like if I had pulled up these Teal Swan videos on YouTube, or watched them, or listened to her speak, she's very comforting. And she says things you want to hear. I really could have been taken by it. Like I really could have, I think I really would have related to, like, wow, like, I want my life to be like this. What's that documentary called? Far, Far. Is it called Far, Far Country? Wild, Wild Country. Under the watchful eye of his secretary, Monn Sheila. She's real interesting in it. Spiritual guru, Bhagwan Shrey Ragesh relocates his ashram from India to Oregon in 1981. You guys, it is so interesting. Wild, Wild Country. It is really good. And I think it's like 5 episodes or something. 6 episodes. And then the Teal Swan one is on Hulu. And it is called The Deep End. Which is interesting because they make it about this pool. Like, they talk about the pool being like the deep end of the pool kind of thing. But it's like they never really show it. Here it is right here. Fractured's Deep End is... Oh. At a time when people are longing for connection, a leading spiritual teacher and her millions of devoted followers are on a mission to end human suffering, but at what cost? I did think one thing that was interesting to me is when you think about spirituality or spiritualists, right? Or people that are like on that level, like, I'm sure there's like some level of pride that comes along with it. But like there's a part in there where she's talking about her Instagram followers and her YouTube followers, and she wants to be bigger than the Pope and all this kind of stuff. That's kind of the beginning of the documentary. And then the last episode, she's unopening her 1 million subscriber plaque on YouTube. And I'm like, girl, what's the real motive here? And the non-negotiables are non-negotiables for, like, it's called like Teal Eye and fame. Like, if you're going to be famous, like, she can't have intruders into the whole thing because then they can leave and tell their story. What are you so afraid? This is what I never understand about this, right? What are you so afraid of then? Oh, well, people will mix up the story. People will, you know, they'll form their own narratives. That's always so interesting to me with people. It's like, oh, I have all these non-disclosure agreements, or I have all these, which is basically what it is, a non-disclosure agreement. I have this, I have that, whatever. I mean, y'all know I've talked enough about YouTubers that do this. And it's like, have you had that experience happen to you so often that people sell you out? Or, like, what's that fear that you're doing something that you don't want people to know? Because that's what my mind jumps to. What are you so afraid of? Or that people might perceive this as being a cult? Why don't you let people make up their own minds? I made up my own mind. Y'all are a cult, okay? Like, that's my perception of it. That's my opinion. So anyway, it was interesting because at one part, they actually showed a lot of YouTube videos that were like reviews of Teal Swan and like how horrible she is. And there's apparently TikToks and all kinds of stuff on there, which I thought that was real interesting too. Should we ask a couple? So I stayed up super late last night. Then I got into bed and I couldn't sleep. So I was like laying there for the longest time, and I was like, I want just a little bite of a crumble cookie and a piece of cheese. So finally at about 6 o'clock, because I wasn't sleeping, I came down to the kitchen and I had like 2 bites of potato, maybe 3 bites of potato salad, and then I had a little bit of a crumble cookie, or 2 maybe. I really did. I had like literally like a bite or 2 of crumble cookie, and then I had a piece of Havarti cheese. Then I went back to bed and I curled up with Boo Radley. Okay, I want to show you something because people are asking about my bird lady, okay? Well, I had 2 different eggs that broke out here. I saw them. And so then I was really worried. I was like, are all the eggs breaking? And all this kind of stuff. So I was like, I gotta take a picture of, I gotta get up there and see if I can get a picture of the nest. But I don't want to disturb her. And I was gonna try to take the fern down and kind of water it underneath the nest. But then I was like, if the fern dies, the fern dies at the expense of these little baby birds having. But I was like, well, what if she keeps on dropping the eggs everywhere and the eggs are nowhere to be found? So I was out here and she flew out, and I hurriedly got up there and I took this picture. I just went like this real quick and took it. And took this from the inside of the fern. There's gonna be my thumbnail. Okay, and as you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eggs. Does anybody know what kind of eggs those are? I don't know. But when I watch TV late at night, she stays up there. I can hear her. And she Like, she doesn't really fly out. Like, if I get up and I walk around or whatever, she doesn't really get up. Or she doesn't leave the nest. Like, if I stand up here, like, when I'm done vlogging and whatever, and I start walking around, like, if she's up there, she'll leave. Because, like, just me standing up and whatever kind of startles her. But at night, she doesn't do that. She stays there the whole night. I don't know if that's because, you know, that they're so worried about their, you know, nest or people, like, other animals getting in there and whatever. But we're going to have some baby birds up here real quick. I'm real excited about it. Boo Radley won't stop talking about it. He's like, oh my lord, Mrs. Birdie again. Mrs. Birdie Gertie and her baby Steve. He's like, are they back? I said, Boo Radley, it's a different family, I think. I said, it's Dan and Roseanne Connor. So how many kids would that be? Well, okay, the eggs would be Becky 1. Oh, Becky 1 and Becky 2. She just flew out. Becky 1 and Becky 2. And then Darlene, DJ. And then didn't they have a baby, like, later in life? I'm almost positive they did. Like, towards the end of the show. The Connors' children. Roseanne is married to Dan Connor, and when the series begins, they have 3 young children. Becky, but there's Becky 2. You have to remember, Becky 1 and Becky 2. Darlene and David Jacob. That's DJ. A 4th child. I was like, I knew there was something about the Grateful Dead, and I couldn't remember. A 4th child, Jerry Garcia, is born in the 8th season of the series. Hold on a second. Becky, Darlene, DJ, Jerry Garcia. Remember, she has the whole, like, hallucination thing. But do you remember one of my favorite episodes is when they're in the bathtub? Or no, it's, what's her face? Why can't I think of her name right now? Why have I seen every episode of Roseanne that was ever existent and I can't? Jackie, Aunt Jackie. Jackie's in the bathtub and Dan and Roseanne are smoking pot in the bathroom. And they were, like, real high. And DJ's knocking on the door. And they start going, DJ, DJ. And Dan goes, and Roseanne's like, why did we ever do this back in the day? And she's like, I don't like this. And then they hear something in the bathtub, and they pull open the curtain, and it's Jackie, and she's like, just me and my contract. That's like one of my favorite episodes ever. That one, and I have to tell you, my favorite episode of Roseanne ever is, well, besides the Halloween Roseanne's are my favorite. Everything's so spooky with Crystal. But I love the episode where they're getting a tornado, and Dan's like out in the driveway, and he says something about it's like something ink. It's like, oh, it looks like something ink, blue ink, or India ink, or something like that. The funeral with her dad is really sad to me, but I think it's such a great episode as far as, like, showing what you really go through in times like that, you know? And she writes her dad this letter that she didn't really have a relationship with her dad, you know, and it was an abusive relationship, and she writes this letter to him, and basically she goes in and reads it to him. If you guys seen the episode, it's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, look it up and watch it. I think it's just called The Funeral, actually. Her and Jackie are, like, in the kitchen, and they're, like, fighting over who's going to call what family members. And that part is, like, so true to life, too, you know. And so Roseanne goes to the funeral, and she wants to say something positive. This is going to make me teary-eyed. I don't know why. But she says all these things to her dad about how she felt about him. And then she says, thank you for your humor. Goodbye. I love TV shows so much that touch our heart and our emotions and make us feel something. You know, I think it's so interesting because most of you know me as this Peter that, like, just thinking about a TV show can make me cry. I don't even have to watch the TV show. I can just think about the TV show and I'm crying, right? And, but, like, it really took a lot of work to get me here, you know? I didn't go to meetings for 4 years, and when I came back, you know, I just really started, you know, we talk about in recovery, you know, living out loud and telling on ourselves and and that means telling where we're at. Like telling on ourselves means this is where I'm at today. This is what I'm feeling. And I was angry and I was sad and I was hurt about so many things in my life, failed relationships and my mom having passed away. And I just word vomited in meetings and to my sponsor. And I just came back like a newcomer, you know, and this Peter that you see today that, laughs and says stupid stuff and is able to, this Peter that you see today that cries over a TV show that he's just thinking about, or the same Peter that is able to flip a fan and laugh at his own jokes that are so ridiculous and stupid, like bird sleeping bags, is not the Peter that you would have seen 10 years ago. You know, that Peter was flat and emotionless, scared of the world, scared of people, not very hopeful. That's the Peter that would have like been able to be taken by like some form of belief system, you know, that wasn't healthy. And what I realized is no matter what my emotions or my feelings are, whether I'm happy, whether I'm sad, whether I feel an emotion for 5 seconds or 5 hours, it's okay. They're my emotions. And I have a right to feel that way. And I have a right to not discount them or, you know, and I have a right to acknowledge them. And what I've done in my life today is surround myself with people that are safe for me. You know, there's not one of my friends, my husband, I mean, you think he hasn't witnessed me crying? You think I haven't witnessed him crying? I mean, like, he wasn't a real emotional person before we went to marriage counseling, and now, you know, since all what we went through before, like, I mean, we're watching some TV show, and I'll look over, and Grey's Anatomy, he always cries, you know, but we've also enjoyed great periods of emotion together, which I think has greatly improved our relationship. And I think I don't have any person in my life, whether that's my husband or my best friend or my sponsor, or my recovery friends around me, or Melissa and Jason or Aaron and Eric, that would be surprised if I bust out crying. You know that person, that friend that you have, that you feel so much for them because anytime that's like something happens, and you can just see the emotion inside, like you can see it in their eyes, right? But they won't let it out because they have emotions or hang-ups about crying, you know, or being too much, laughing too loud, and woo, and dancing and whatever. Like they're afraid to allow themselves to go there. They're really living unfulfilled lives. And I lived an unfulfilled life for so much of my life that I won't allow myself to do that today, you know? Even just sitting on this front porch, just sitting here talking, you know, like Ann Tyler said, the writer, as an armchair traveler, there's so many emotions I can feel, you know, and I want to feel them. I want to feel all of them, and I want to feel alive, and I want to feel grateful and thankful that I feel those emotions today, because I didn't for a long time, you know. And it's interesting, my dad always says, like, you know, when people joke about me being an only child, my dad's like, Peter wasn't like that. Like, he wasn't a spoiled brat. He never cried. He never threw tantrums. I was pretty flat as a kid. And I think that I also learned, being kind of like bullied in school and stuff, that if you show any emotion, they're going to pick up on that. And so I think there was fear associated to me showing emotion. You know what I mean? And I think growing up with an alcoholic mom, at times of where I would show great happiness, I was afraid, how long will this last? So there was no correct spectrum for me to play out my emotions in, you know. Or, you know, it's interesting, it's like, if you look up like a feelings chart, have you guys ever done this before? So we used to use these in treatment, but if you look up a feelings chart, because I think that when we talk about emotions, we think about like anger, sadness, happiness. That's it. There's 3. Okay. Feelings. Okay. I'm going to look up emotions chart. When you guys hear this, so back in the day when I worked in treatment, like every day we would, like, you know, when we were doing a morning group, which was called community, we would say, you know, today I'm choosing to feel, because we believed that you choose to feel your feelings, you know, and you can choose to continue to feel them or get out of it or whatever. So these are what feelings charts look like. Okay. And you can I mean, they have hundreds of them. Like, look at this one, has literally like hundreds. Okay. But then they also have, you know, these are the ones that we used to use back in the day in treatment. They look like that. And when you go through them, They're just like aggressive, agonized, cautious. I'm just picking through because this goes A through Z. Disapproving, envious, happy, indifferent, meditative, paranoid, satisfied, sad, sheepish, thoughtful, sympathetic, turned on, undecided, smug, puzzled, regretful, obstinate, loaded, hurt, hungover, frustrated, frightened, exhausted. It stopped right in the middle of my going through all my feelings. But anyway, curious, demure, confident, concentrating, blissful, bashful, arrogant, apologetic. So, I mean, there's so many emotions that you can feel, right? So when we break it down and we say that we only have like 2 or 3 emotions, that's just not accurate. Look at my hair today. It's so pretty, isn't it? That's just not accurate. And I think it's allowing ourselves to feel those feelings. And, you know, it's like I got real sad about that Roseanne for a second. If I hadn't allowed myself to feel that, or if I had like stopped the camera and been like, I'm not going to cry on camera or whatever, and then pushed that down, then that just keeps on being pushed down and pushed down and pushed down. You know, like, look, now I'm on the other side of that. It's like, and I feel good, you know, I feel happy that I talked about that. And I'm like, I allow myself to go through this like broad range of emotions on, you know, a regular basis. And I think that's healthy. I think it's really healthy. So, all right, I've been over an hour. I think it's over an hour now, and my coffee's almost gone. And my battery is at the halfway mark. And Alex got home, and I could see that he fed Boo Radley. So I'm going to go in and check in with my husband. And, yeah, I love you guys, and I will... Oh, I'm not going to say I'm going to see you tomorrow. I have to say, if nobody else has told you this today, I love you. And 3 most important things. Practice random acts of kindness. And you can start your day over whenever you want. That just means you say, if you're having a bad day, just go, okay, I need to start my day over. So from this moment on, I'm starting my day over. And most importantly, make sure that you reach out to somebody and let them know how much they mean to you. And I love you guys so much. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Love ya!